Hi, I'm Gavin Glicksman. Joining me today at Sun HQ is Sir Geoff Hurst. Sir Geoff, thank you for joining us.
Hi Gavin, nice to be here. New studio.
Very nice, isn't it? It's not too bad at all.
Lovely.
First of all, at the moment, how do you think England are progressing under Roy Hodgson?
I think he's doing okay. I think it's a difficult job. Let's be fair, it's a difficult job. There's only 35% of the players playing now in the Premier League, English born. You're relying on a small number of players. We've got Jack Wilshere, who's having a problem with injury. You just can't immediately replace him. So it's, but I think so far, and really it'll only be judged on how we do when we qualify. If we qualify, it's successful. If we don't, it's not good. And we should really expect to qualify from this particular group. So it's about results. It's over a 2-year period, and then you've got to look at, analyse it from there. It's difficult to start making too many quick judgments, you know, in the early part of his reign. He's a very competent coach. He's the first person we've ever had managing England that's managed another international team. He's got a great experience in the game, and I wish him well. As we all know, it's a very tough job. But we'll wait and see the verdict when we get through the qualification. But I'm very positive, and I fully expect us to qualify.
We're second in the qualifying group at the moment with away games against San Marino and Montenegro coming up. Is there now extra pressure to get 6 points from those games?
Yeah, there's always extra pressure. People would always say you are expected to beat both those teams. But Montenegro are top, so they're playing well, they're successful. So it'll be a tough game. I don't think there are as many easy games in international football as perhaps there may have been in the past. Although you could argue there wasn't this qualification period where you're playing, without being disrespectful, lesser teams like San Marino. But you should expect to get them, and I think it's important we beat Montenegro because, of course, it'll put us top of the group in a much more comfortable position.
Do you think that weight of expectation still really holds the team back?
Yes, I do. I still think it's the anticipation for the national team to be successful does weigh heavily on maybe not so much the manager, but the players. There's always that expectation that we're going to do well. We're big footballing nations. We're passionate about our game. So there's always that difficulty of expecting we're going to win every game 5-0, and of course, international football today, we know it's not the case.
What makes it so different though from playing for your club to playing for your country? I mean, they're dealing with pressure every day, and yet on the international stage, it just seems to be worse.
Well, difficult to assess. It's difficult to assess. Probably, maybe the clubs. There is a difference now. The clubs expect a lot more of their players. They're paying them huge amounts of money. So, and they've got the Champions League, which is now taking a huge part of the top players' season. And this is not the players. The criticism of the players' fault. The system now probably has changed a bit, where in some cases I feel that it's not regarded as big to play for England, or the country, and that's England, as it is to play in the Champions League. And that's not the criticism of players. I think it's the situation that they're in, this amount of games, half a season almost on the Champions League if you get to the final. And they're big games against the top players. So it's changed in that respect. But it is a bit unfair, I think, to be too critical of the players. But I think because there's an expectation on the national team being successful, and we think we should do well, if things don't go well, perhaps the top paid players who are successful at their clubs in the Premier League and the Champions League, perhaps occasionally they think, well, why do we need this hassle, this bit of extra criticism if we don't, win 4-0 at Wembley? And you can understand that in human nature. And it is a bit different in this country with the powerful Premier League against the interests of the national side. And I do feel culturally and traditionally we should always regard playing for your country as being the pinnacle of your career. I always regarded that, and I'm sure in most cases that the players are always are proud of playing for the country. But there is a difficulty because of the pull and the tugging with the other competitions as opposed to the national side.
We mentioned Jack Wilshere earlier. He's out injured for the qualifiers. How big a loss will he be?
I wouldn't say it's a big loss because we should have enough players to be successful in those games. I'm disappointed for him personally because he's a fantastic prospect, fantastic player, and having another injury so close to the other ones, you start to be a little bit concerned about his professional future. There are certain players, I'm not sure in Jack's case, that seem to be slightly injury prone. I do feel sometimes he's such a wholehearted and aggressive player and does fantastically well for Arsenal and is a brilliant player. Sometimes I feel that when he goes into tackles, maybe that a little naively, that he's leaving so open to be hurt sometimes. I think in professional game, I go back to my experience, and I used to joke about it when people said, you know, it's a tough game you're playing, and I made no bones about in the position I played against the tough players I played against. Occasionally I made a joke that I jump out the way, you know, I wouldn't have finished a game or a season or a career. You've got to be mindful, I think, and be aware of where people are coming from, where defenders are coming from, if they're really favourites to get the ball, how important it is in areas of the pitch. And certain players over the years, you'd argue, maybe a little bit naive in wanting to go into tackles where they're not favourite, they're in the other players in a better body position, and you're liable to get hurt unnecessarily. Having said that, it's difficult to diffuse a player, a terrific player like Jack, and his physical attributes to want to play the game that way. But I think he has to be a bit careful if he continues to have these long layoffs.
It made headlines when Wayne Rooney was left on the bench for Manchester United's Champions League game with Real Madrid. Are you worried at all about Wayne's form?
No, I think he's a quality player. He's a professional. I think I've seen the headlines. I saw the headlines when I was away about there's been some criticism about his form. I can only be positive. I think you've got to be positive about players. It's very easy to be negative about a player because he's left out. They've got a big squad. They've got a long season. Who knows what's behind Sir Alex thinking? And you've got to be very careful about being too negative. He's a top-class player. He's proved he's a top-class player. Scores goals, and whatever people have said, where I look at him today, I still see him being a part of Man United setup in the next few years, without question. Subject, of course, to the injury. I saw a picture of him score the goal the other day, and I realised what a nasty scar that. Talking about injury, what a nasty scar that's left on his thigh. The picture I saw in my computer, saying, "Whoa, that's not good." But I don't go along with that, and I tend to be positive. And people say they think I'm a bit senile because I'm positive all the time. I supposedly stupidly said we get to the semi-final of the Euros, and people thought I was a raving lunatic. We were a penalty kick away from getting there. As a person, as a player, you can only be positive, and I feel quite strongly and positive that Wayne's going to have a lot more years and successful years at Man United.
Do you think Rooney's delivered the goods in an England shirt?
Arguably not, although he scored the goals, and yeah, you could argue. But I think it's a collective thing. It's not so much, it's how the team performs, and I think he's part of a team. He's not the team. No one player is bigger than the team, and I think you could argue he's not quite played as well. And there's been probably an argument that a lot of not a lot, but a few of the national team players, when they play for the country, maybe don't necessarily perform as well as they do for the clubs. But of course, it's a different level. It's world football as opposed to European or club football. But I can understand people saying he's not quite set the world alight. But having said that, he's an integral member of the side, and again, I fully expect him to be part of the national setup for quite some time, if he remains fit.
Looking at grassroots football, do you think enough is being done now to encourage people to play the game?
Yes, you could always argue more could be done, but I think I can only speak from our perspective with this 10-year partnership now McDonald's have had with the FA, and what we've achieved with 25,000 coaches. I think that's already has made a significant impact on the number of coaches, on the better quality players. I think that first, if you look at analyse the 10 years quite quickly, first 3 or 4 years we get numbers on the board. We started with a blank sheet, nobody, absolutely nobody. We've now got 25,000. Numbers are good. After the first 3 or 4 years, we started looking at quality. That's important in education, improving the quality, getting them from level 1 to level 2. We can still improve, but I think that it's been a really great start. And I think what you do need in football, we know you need money. And the other thing, I think the community awards we have at McDonald's is again recognising these 400,000 people now in the communities that help football. If you take away the funding and those 400,000, we'd have no grassroots. Eric Harrison, the great coach at Man United, said today, you take away grassroots football, we would have no football, because that's where it all starts. You can't pick a player for England at 20 years of age who's never kicked a ball at 5. So it is absolutely vital. I can't stress the vital for the future of the game, vital for young people to get out and enjoy the great sport we have. And we have a number of festivals a year, and I never cease to be absolutely thrilled to see young kids playing football. And we're seeing a great increase on the girls' side as well. Over 15% now in England over the last 10 years, more girls playing the game, and that's a great statistic for me as well.
Brilliant. So Geoff, thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure, thank you.
Appreciate it.